Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second episode of the Capital Courts Inc. podcast. Today, we have someone really respected in the Ottawa community. He had a stellar university career at St. Francis Xavier University in Nova Scotia. He had a 5-year pro career playing in Belgium, Romania, and Canada. He's one of the most foundation dudes that came up through the Ottawa Phoenix system. You can now find him still putting the fear of God in dudes in men's leagues, in local men's leagues, and lending his hand to the OC Transport Express and the Ottawa Police Hoop Stars community outreach programs. He's the founder and CEO of Trench Life Apparel. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Garry Gallimore.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Man.
Hey, man.
To be here.
Oh, this is. We are blessed right now. We are blessed. So first off, I've been in the city for about 20 years, and I came in and I saw you playing some high school ball, bodying dudes. You play with a certain edge, especially on defense. Where does that edge come from?
Thinking back, I think naturally there's a part of me that's overly competitive, but I think the edge came from how I learned the game, which was, playing outside on the blacktop. I was always one of the younger guys around, so if in order to compete and be chosen to play with the older guys, you had to play tough, and I think that's where I kind of developed that edge where I step on the court, it's eat or be eaten. So that's kind of been my approach to the game.
And you've always had that. Is it something that you use as a motivational thing, or is it just something that's just natural?
Initially I would say it's natural. It's definitely something that's in me. But I think over the years, as I played and furthered my career, I kind of controlled it more and used it in a way to make myself more competitive and also give me a competitive edge on the basketball court.
And you came up through the Ottawa Phoenix system under Adrian Cadet and Andy Waterman. Those two people have been, influential in your life. What are some of the lessons and some of the life lessons that you've learned from those two? So
I met Adrian Cadet first when I transferred from Bell High School in grade 10 to Woodruff High School, and she was a teacher there and also coached the junior team. Being an educator first, her big thing always was use the game of basketball as a vehicle to get yourself through life.
Absolutely.
As opposed to allowing yourself to be used by the game. So that's one of the first things she taught me, and that's one thing that I've always put in the forefront of my mind whenever I was dealing with anything life-wise, but especially basketball-wise. So, I put myself in a position to attend university. Not many universities back then gave scholarships, but I went out east to St. Francis Xavier because I was offered my tuition. And also what supplemented that also was I was a part of the national team program. And back then they had a carding system where if Canadian players stayed in Canada to play university or attend university, they'll give you some money as well. So I combined the both to pretty much pay for school.
That's great.
Yeah, so that's one thing that they taught me, and I've always found ways to use it to move through life.
Right. So you spoke, a lot highly of Adrian Cadet. Mr. Waterman, H2O, that dude.
Yeah.
Tell me more about how you guys met there. How'd you guys connect?
So again, I actually met Coach Waterman through Coach Cadet.
Okay.
At Woodruff High School. She would bring him in as a guest coach to help with the program. And I think she saw something in me, and she thought that the two of them working together could definitely point me in the right direction. Right. So after my junior year at Woodruff, I was invited out to the Phoenix tryouts.
Okay.
And, I had to earn my stripes because at the time, I think the guys that were playing there were really good, really solid players.
Yeah.
They had Dion Williams, who was a former X-Men. He was a point guard at the time.
Right.
They had John Bell, who later joined me at St. FX. And just a bunch of guys in Ottawa that were really talented, but were maybe not able to play for other club teams.
Right.
So the situation that Andy and Adrian created allowed them to do that. Ali Mahmoud, like there's a lot of guys that came through the program.
Yes.
So I was very fortunate in that sense, because guys that I played against in the regular season who were also good and, might have lost to, now we got a chance to play together and then go in, which was also gave me another perspective on the game. Yeah. So that was,
That's cool. And you that perspective on the game, I remember you watching you at St. FX, and you played for legendary Coach Konchalski, who's
a legend,
just finishing up his illustrious career.
Yeah.
What did you learn from him specifically?
I think Coach K, he has a lot of knowledge, first of all. And I think Coach K's his temperament is one thing that he brings to the game, where he doesn't have a loud voice, so he's not necessarily hooting and hollering at you, but he knows how to communicate information to you for you to understand. And being the caliber coach that he is, you respect the information you're getting, and you're able to implement it into your game for sure. And I just the way he moved around people. He's a very likable person because of how he carries himself. So, just learning to be a better, people person,
right.
How to deal with people in a way that allows them to respect you as well as you showing them the respect. So that's one thing I picked up from Coach K for sure.
So I played for Coach K, and I share those same sentiments. I came in a little bit wild, crazy. Yeah. I know you came in with that strong attitude. Yeah. How was he able to guide you in a way where you're controlling your temperament, and get the most out of you? How did that transpire?
I think the initial respect that I had from our initial meeting kind of helped me along the way. I think what happened was, when Coach K was recruiting me, right. He was so consistent. And back then I was really, just like everybody else, I wanted to, go play in the States, play D1 and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And I remember the phone would ring and it would be a long distance call, and I'd be like, my heart would start pounding. I was like, this is the call. And it would always be Coach K. And sometimes I'd be like, come on, man.
Where's the States?
Yeah. Where's the schools? But he was always so consistent. And I think the initial respect, and when he actually came to my house, he sat down with my parents, and, I thought that was very, very commendable.
Yes.
Because to come all the way from Halifax, I was living in Ramsey at the time. Yes. So, and he sat in our living room, and I thought that was so cool. And my mother and my father absolutely loved him from get-go. So, and also the level of respect I have for my parents, and see how they're gravitating to him kind of spurred me towards, building that respectful relationship towards him. And then obviously when you respect a person to a certain level, yes, you want to do everything you can to not jeopardize that relationship.
Absolutely.
So I think just that initial meeting and, his consistency in the recruiting process and just how he came off. He was a genuine guy.
Right.
And he still reached out. He still, wonders about my parents and stuff like that. So, I graduated from St. FX in 2007, so that's 13 years strong, and he's still that kind of influential person. If I even mention Coach K's name, my parents light up.
They know, they know, and that's one of the gifts that St. FX brings, and he comes with that experience. I had the exact same experience when he came to my house, sat down, talked to my mom, and didn't feel uncomfortable, and you saw that he's not uncomfortable in these scenarios, and I was like, no brainer. And I think he has that impact on a lot of guys, and that's just Coach K. You can't say a negative word about that guy when it comes to how he treats people. How did you get overseas? I know you had a stellar career. Now, how did that happen? I know you probably had different offers, or why did you choose? How did you come about going to play pro overseas? So
I think when I started at St. FX, going overseas wasn't something that was preached to us. I think, but as I got further in my career, at St. FX, there's guys that had went on to play pro. You went on to play pro. More close to my age at the time was Fred Perry, which was a St. FX standout.
Yes.
Jordan Croucher now, who is is topping the charts for the R&B singles.
He's killing it.
Yeah, so he was also a guy I believe that was pursuing a pro career. So when I got close, and also there's some other Ottawa guys. I remember having a conversation with Japheth Mazaruka when he was finished at Carleton.
Yes.
And he was at the time playing in Iceland.
Yes.
And he was kind of telling me about the experience, and and he was encouraging me to say, yeah, man, you do really great. If you pursue that. And also that's something I kept in the back of my mind. So when I was in my fourth year at St. FX, I had made a decision that I'll be graduating, that I didn't need to linger anymore.
Right.
Just a victory lap and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I told Coach K at the start of that season what I was thinking, and he said, obviously he would have loved me to play my fifth, but he was like, okay, after the season, I know some agents overseas that have helped my guys in the past, and I'll reach out to them, and we'll put the tapes together, get your stats together, and then we'll reach out to those people, and hopefully something would transpire from that.
Right. And so you chose to play. So what country did you choose to play?
So my first contract was in Belgium. It was in the first division in Belgium.
Right.
How I got there was the agent that Coach K plugged me in with. He knew a coach that was actually a Canadian guy. Okay. His name is Tom Johnson. I believe he played at UVic.
Okay.
And he was coaching. He played over there some years, and now he was coaching over there. So the agent had made contact with Tom Johnson, and Tom, he said that he pays attention to what's going on in Canada. Right. He's from Canada. Right. So he said, I saw your name come up. So it was kind of like, for him, it was kind of like a good opportunity to give a Canadian kid a chance, because I was doing pretty well in the CIS. Sure. And obviously, based on his experience in the CIS, he wanted to give based on probably how he came up and how he got over there, he wanted to give another kid a chance. And he took the chance on me. And fortunately for me also, I was kind of like, nervous, obviously, because it's a big step. Absolutely. And at the time, the big man I played with, Neil McDonald, was also I'd also got some interest from Tom Johnson. We ended up going over there and becoming teammates and going from there. Right.
So talk to us a little bit about the pro life over there. Yeah. A lot of people think that it's like you sign a contract and it's like a replica of university. It's lights, it's cameras, it's actions, it's clubs. It's like, tell us, some of the ups and downs of just Romania to start.
Okay. So the bottom line is it's a job. There's going to be lights. There's going to be cameras. There's going to be screaming fans. There's going to be people asking for autographs. There is going to be clubs. It is. It's the lifestyle. Yeah. And, but I think the thing, though, you have to treat it as a job. So you're not going to, if you work in the government or whatever your job is, however you win your bread, you're not going to be in the clubs every night, because you need your rest. You need to be able to show up to work on time. Yep. You need to be able to function at the level they need you to function because they're paying you. So so in Romania, it was, for lack of a better word, I'm going to say it was a little bit more cutthroat. Yeah. So it's funny you mentioned cutthroat. There's no guaranteed contracts. No. A lot of people are under the impression that I sign a contract and I'm there for the entire year. Right. If you look at a lot of the players that are playing pro ball, you see a lot of countries behind their names. Yeah. Why is that? I think you at certain points you have to, in a way, depending at the level you're playing at, be a journeyman. So realistically, you're making your money over there, but you still have to come back here, and you want to come back with as much as you can. Right. So you're probably going to look for the gigs that are going to pay you what you want to be paid, and obviously give you the opportunity to perform so that you can secure another contract. So a lot of guys do end up becoming journeymen because they're basically chasing the bag, also chasing the opportunity. So I think that also happens because like you said, the contracts aren't guaranteed. So a lot of times, a situation might not be favorable to you. So you might, I got to get going, or they don't like what you're doing, so they send you packing.
Yeah.
Because whether you sign on the dotted line, you have to sign on it, but it's not guaranteed. Whatever the contract says, at the end of the day, if they're not happy with you, then
on to the next
road. And then obviously, if you're not happy, you and your agent and the team could come to some kind of agreement, and then you could part ways.
Right.
So I think that's why it's like that, and also it's an opportunity to travel as well. So I think a lot of guys who like to get around and be in different places and live in different places also use that as an opportunity, because it looks good. You have a bunch of different flags, different countries on your passport. It's kind of like a ego boost. Yeah. You feel good. You
feel good
because there's a lot out there you get to learn when you get to move around.
And that's good. Like, I think a lot of young players chasing that pro life, that pro dream, they don't understand that you gotta literally live out your backpack, and you can't get too settled into the community. I mean, you try to ingratiate yourself with the population, with the culture, but you could be gone to another country speaking learning a whole new different culture and the do's and don'ts, and you gotta find the locals that you can say, can I do this, can I do that, and the tour, it's a lot. Plus you gotta be a baller, you gotta produce. And what were your practices like when you were playing pro ball?
One thing I liked about being overseas, like, because it's a job, like it's just basketball. So on average, we practice twice a day with some days off, as like with any job. So in the mornings, usually from my experiences, we would have agility, conditioning, weights, and just skills and drills, shooting, handling, and in cases where it'd be closer to game day, you'd be going over other teams' plays and learning their plays and doing that kind of stuff. And then in the evenings, it's usually more 5-on-5 based, going over your systems, going over the game plan for the upcoming competitions and so on and so forth, and also preparing for your matchups, who you're going to be facing, that kind of stuff.
And as opposed to university basketball and pro basketball, what would you gauge the level? Was CIS/U Sport higher than where you were playing initially, or was pro ball like way higher?
For me, it was way higher because, again, the Belgian first division was a very tough division. It's big basketball over there, and in CIS, I guess I had an advantage again based on how I played. And in the conference I played in, I was more of an up-tempo, strong, aggressive defensive player, attacking the rim initially and later on being able to knock down some shots. But when I got to Belgium, it was a completely different game because again, I wasn't as big and strong as I was as compared to the guys that matched up in the CIS.
Right.
And again, at 6'3", but with my shoes off, I'm 6'2". At 6'2", playing position 2-3. Again, my matchups are now 6'6", 6'7", and guys probably same weight as me and probably heavier or stronger. And being that they might have a height advantage, now it becomes a matter of now I'm playing in the post, guarding the post. Because that's strategy, that's chess. And I think it was tougher for me also because I didn't learn to play in the pick and roll basketball in university as much as I should have. I always got off on, getting defenses and breaking out and, getting transition buckets and that kind of stuff. So the half court game for me wasn't as developed as the guys I was playing against. And I mean, that's just how I came up playing. Like a lot of how I got my offense, defense. We pressed a lot in high school. We pressed a lot of same effects, so it was all turnovers and run. Or get the rebound, hit the guy, and run. So I didn't get a chance to learn the half court game as well as I should have. And that's one thing in Europe that everybody knows how to play is the pick and roll, and the half court basketball. So,
would you say the IQ is higher overseas?
I'm gonna say initially,
yes,
especially because European players they come up in that system. So it's like anything you do repeatedly, you get better at it. It becomes automatic.
Right.
It's like studying. You study for extended periods of time, you become a master of what you're studying.
Right.
And that's the difference between European and Canadian players that, while I think North American, especially, general, while we tend to lean more on our physical capabilities, running, the athleticism and all that kind of stuff, they tend to focus more on the cerebral part of the game. So I think when I went over there, that's the part I had to learn. And I was a step behind a lot of the guys I was playing, because there's guys there that were playing years before me. Yeah. And there's guys who went over there maybe a couple years or came from a program that taught them that kind of basketball. Right. So I learned early that I remember this is just like one thing. This play sticks into my mind because it was like, I remember catching the ball on the wing, and I thought, here's my advantage because that's what I've done. Sure. And I swept and I attacked baseline and ended up running into the big guy and the other big guy guarding him. And it was just because, that's what I knew. Like, here's my chance to use my but because the spacing was different and the size of the players were different, like, I wasn't thinking of how to like maneuver around in the half court and what plays I should have made next. Right. And I remember taking this ridiculous shot, and then the big guy was like, "Yo, you can't do that. You have to kick it out and then move around and move off the ball. Like, okay, you have to run the plays." And it was a broken play too. Sure. I broke the play. Yeah. I've been successful doing that before. Yeah. So, and that was kind of like a waking moment for me, and I was like, "Whoa, and then kind of like, then you start thinking differently, and you start realizing that your shortcomings, basically. Right, but you learn quickly. Yeah, you have to learn quickly. And I credit Tom Johnson, as well as we had an assistant coach named Pascal Angelis, he was a brilliant, like, strategic guy. And, he was always talking to me and teaching me things and, staying with me after practice and helping me understand things. But to be honest with you, all that I learned that year, like, I didn't really get to put it into play until like my years to come. Okay. Because again, I kind of fell out of the rotation into like a 6-man, 7th-man position. Okay. Yep. Because as it works is, if the team is not being as successful as it is, then you have to bring in other players. Absolutely. And I remember they brought in a guy not too long after I'd been there. He went to SMU in Texas, Southern Methodist University. He was about 6 foot. I give him 6 foot. Right. But he was a little guy, crazy bounce, crazy speed, and a scoring machine. Wow. And I remember thinking, like, when I saw him at practice, wow, damn, that's what it is. And, I remember, trying to be competitive, because, you don't want to, you want to see like you're just handing it over to spot. Yeah. But it was very obvious that, that he was there to be that guy that you were not being. And then they brought another guy in, not too long after that. That went to Texas Tech. Andre Emmett played for Bobby Knight. Okay, what was he? I think he's third all-time leading scorer in the Big 12 right now. And he was probably hands down the best all-around player I've ever matched up with at that time. Because at 6'6", he had an incredible post game, incredible touch, incredible outside game. He was a scoring machine. And the funny thing is, both those guys are from Texas, and they've played against each other their whole life. So they know. So it was kind of, and there was a couple other guys, a guy named Larry Owens, who also was about probably a 6'6", 6'7" hybrid player. So with all those guys, and these guys been pros before, have been over their years. So it was like, do we let the rookie who still has to learn, make the mistakes and maybe cost us some games, or do we go with the guys that's going to help the team win and go from there? So I kind of had to learn from them as well as the coaches as how to, play the game over there. Right. So then you had a quick stint in Canada. You played in the NBL a little bit for Rainmen. Was that a little bit different than the European experience? It was way different, and it was probably how so? Least favorite experience. And that's because while it was a great opportunity, I played. It was called the PBL back then. So how it was set up was there was only 2 teams in Canada. It was the Halifax Rainmen, and it was a team in Quebec. I forgot what the name of the team was, but they're from
Kebs.
That's it. Yeah, the Quebec Kebs. And they played out of, I believe, McGill University.
Right.
And all the other teams were teams that were spread throughout the United States. You had a team in Buffalo. You had a team in other parts of upstate New York. And we also, Oklahoma, you know, and then there's a team in Puerto Rico. So it was kind of, that's how it was set up. But my thing with that league was, I thought part of it, as competitive as it could be, I thought part of it was silly because I think there was like a 4-point shot or something like that.
Oh,
it was
man.
like shot from half court or something like that, or a 5-point shot. So I thought that was kind of goofy.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it had a more entertainment appeal than actual like the basketball that I was used to playing at the time. So in that sense, it was. I'm not an entertainer. I'm not a trick shot guy. I'm not a fancy too many dribble moves. I'm not that kind of guy. So, you know, it took a while for me. Well, it was different, and I knew it was different, and I knew it was really suited for what my passion was. But again, it was a good team. It was a good bunch of guys. There's a lot of talented guys on that team. A lot of guys who, even after that situation, went on to have illustrious careers overseas. Right. So yeah. So I mean, it was a good starting point. I mean, it was a good position to be in to kind of learn like where I was basketball wise, what I wanted and what I didn't want, and in terms of what I desire for myself in the future. But at that time, that's what it was. I know it's now the NBL. NBL, yeah. And there's a lot of Canadian teams. And I believe a lot of players from that league actually came over and played for those Canadian teams. Right. So, yeah. And so over that 5-year span of playing pro ball, you had to now... You're grinding for that next contract. Like when you realize, okay, do I grind for that next contract or do I settle down in Ottawa? So, get my, establish my roots, start my family. Like, how was that transition? Like, was that a difficult decision to just say, you know what, I'm good, I'm done chasing the dream, living out my backpack, or was it quite easy? Was it a smooth transition for you? It was a pretty smooth transition and relatively easy from my standpoint. I think my wife would probably say something else. But the deciding factor is that I started getting hurt. So with getting hurt was I wasn't able to play at the level that I enjoyed playing at. And I was always conscious of what my body felt like based on, it was my knees. I had a torn meniscus in each knee. Okay. And just because of the workload that comes with being overseas and the 2 practices a day and, just the intensity of it, like I could feel it and I felt it. I could feel it in my bones and everything. So that also contributed, as well as at the time, my now wife, her and I at that time, might have been together about 4 years. Okay. And, she was a career-driven woman. Yes. She's very educated and all that kind of stuff. And you'd get these hints without getting the hint, you know what I mean? Where, the biological clock is ticking and what her goals were and what she wanted, which lined up with what I wanted in terms of having a family and building on that. So long term. Yeah, exactly. So based on how my body felt and based on what I saw I could have with her, I think those were 2 deciding factors, as well as I remember sitting in my room one year. I think it was returning after my second knee operation, and my knees were hurting so bad. And I was like, man, what if I have children and I'm stuck just sitting on the bench while they run around and you can't chase them? Yeah, and I can't run around. I can't play with them. I can't do that kind of stuff. And I remember thinking, well, you could get them a dog and the dog could chase them. not the same. Not the same. But then it definitely wasn't the same. So I came back, and obviously, my parents have always been a pillar in my life, and they're very, adamant about. They loved my wife, Natasha, at the time. They still love her. They love her. They're like, she's family now. Yeah, she's family. Basketball. Yeah, come on, man. More you got to pursue. And I listened because, my parents have never steered me wrong. And based on how I felt about her at the time, it felt like it was the right thing to do. And based on the conversations we were having, it felt like it was the right move to make. And that's why the transition, in my opinion, was easy. even though the first year first year away from the game, you kind of feel like
you're going through withdrawal.
You're going through withdrawal, and also that was the best my body had felt in a little while, because I hadn't dribbled the ball, I hadn't worked out, I hadn't done anything, so my body actually had time to
heal up.
Itself. So I was like, man, I'm good to go. But at that point, I'm so far ahead in what my life was shaping up to be, so I had to stick it out, and here I am.
That's. I mean, a lot of people don't understand how that feels. That withdrawal. I've never, been on drugs, but I hear about withdrawal, and I see, with people with withdrawal, like real serious withdrawal. Yeah. But withdrawal from basketball is a real thing, man.
For real, man.
You could play a pickup ball as much as you want. It's just not the same. And there's some dudes who play pickup ball who really think they're still overseas.
Yeah, exactly.
They're still playing for money. Exactly. But I think, it's just a mental, transition where you have to say, okay, what's more important for me right now? And I think you made that, I think you made that decision very well. Yeah. So part of when you were overseas, you started a movement in the form of athletic apparel.
Right.
How did Trench Life, what's the origins of Trench Life?
So the origins of Trench Life, I'm not going to say it's not an original idea.
Okay.
In the sense that, and also the idea of being in the trenches is something you hear a lot, even in other sports, football, all that kind of stuff, something I've heard. But I think my first season in Romania actually was when the idea came to me, or the vision rather. And what was happening was, because I was kind of starting over again when I got to, because I had taken some years off before that, I was kind of starting over again. So I really had to kind of buckle down or dig in or dig deep or get in the trenches and grind it out, because I really wanted this opportunity. Yep. So, and with being in Romania is a very unique place. Because I was in the capital, which is Bucharest, which is right. A lot of hustle and bustle, a lot of moving parts, and just it's like, it's not as it would be here, where you walk outside and have to jump on a bus and go here, and when it's time to go to work, it's a busy place. Yeah, it's absolutely busy. Yeah. And also one thing they had over there was a lot of stray dogs, very, very common in Bucharest. Right. And I remember a lot of times walking from my apartment to go get the bus or to the game or to practice, and and I'd see a pack of dogs, and I'd be like, man, and, sometimes they'd chase you, sometimes so you're hoping that day wasn't the day and it became, I think this was around 2011, where hashtagging was a big thing. It was kind of starting to blossom, and I was like, so every time I'd make a post, got chased by a pack of wild dogs going to practice, hashtag trench life. Yeah.
So it started to catch on.
Yeah. So then, different things that I was using to motivate myself or continue to push myself forward and being, showing gratitude for the opportunity that I had in front of me was always hashtag trench life. Today was a really battle, but we stuck it out, hashtag trench life. Right. And then at the end of the season, it was, I was just sitting around, and it was like, yo, trench life. Now, why don't you put that on some gear? Yeah. And that's what I did. I had some shorts made, just to see some basketball shorts, because at the time I was a basketball player. Yeah. No brainer. Yeah. And so I did that, and the feedback I've gotten from people like my friends or people who who like the idea that, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. So, over the years, we've, just trying to do different things. But I think our main focus now is we want to do performance apparel. Right. So, just things to help people perform at their best in different sports, the compression gear, obviously the temperature regulated gear, because one thing about what I loved about being an athlete was the gear. The right gear can make you feel like you could do anything. That's right. The wrong gear can make you be pulling at your clothes and making an adjustment, distracting you from the game. So that's where we are right now. We're looking at performance apparel and looking at ways we can be innovative and also ways we could bring the awareness of the brand to people. And I think the toughest thing though is convincing people that you have something special. That's right. Because there's so many heavy hitters that have established themselves over decades. Thinking about performance, you think about, Nike, Under Armour, all that kind of stuff, even Lululemon, which is also a big brand that's come on over the years. Right. So, you have to be able to court side kind of convince people that, you know, your stuff is as good and will help you get the results as those other brands that they're familiar with.
Absolutely.
It's an uphill process, but we're in it for the long haul. And, you know, hopefully we're getting some good feedback. And
I've gotten some feedback even here in the gym.
Yeah.
There was one of my clients came in and he was rocking some Trench Life gear.
Okay, nice.
And he was playing one-on-one against one of our trainers and shot and hit the game winner for one-on-one. And he held up his shooting hand and he said, "Trench Life, baby." I was like, wait, what did you just say? So that's the Trench Life. I'm like, Phoenix dude.
Okay, definitely.
So I was like, I gotta get Garry on. But your younger brother Neville, he's just finished a sick career at Oklahoma University, and he's looking to get to the next level now. How has Trench Life impacted him, like the philosophy?
I think Neville, like when I started Trench Life, because I was still playing, I was kind of like, gearing it around myself. Yeah. But when I look at Neville's journey is definitely Trench Life, because you got to look at where, for me also, Trench Life is a starting point, and then the grind to get you to like your end goals. So when I look at Neville's situation, Neville, Ottawa kid, started out at St. Pat's, grade 9, grade 10. And, back then he thought he was a basketball player. I thought he was a basketball player, and I was really like pushing him to be a basketball player. But, he was a big boy, and he one day he got put on his big boy pants, came in my room. I was living with my parents at the time because I always stayed with my parents. And, he knocked on the door and we had that talk. It's like, I like basketball, but, kind of because you and my brother played. And then he was like, but I really like football. And, in my mind, I was like, okay, well, what do you...
No, you're good. I know.
But then he was like, it's nothing against what you guys have done, but I think football is more for me. And I was like, all right, man, like, whatever you want to do, I trust your decision, and whatever you need me to do to help you along the way, for sure, I got you. And then, he just blossomed into, he hit his growth spurt, and then he just blossomed into a player that, that we've seen over the years. Yeah. So Ottawa, Canada, he meets a guy at some camp in the States named Jeff MacArthur, who played at Cal with Aaron Rodgers and Beast Mode. And he was a guy that was supposed to be like the next best receiver coming out of his year, but hurt himself, tore his knees up or whatever. So he didn't get that chance to play in the NFL. Right. But I don't know what brought him to Canada, but he was starting a prep school, Canada Prep Football Academy in St. Catharines, Ontario. He saw my brother and said, they spoke, and, he won my brother over. He came to us, spoke to us about it. Jeff spoke to my parents about it, which is big for me. If you speak to my parents and you win them over, or my older brother, like I'm not too far behind.
It's a lock.
That has to be the foundation. Anybody who comes around, wants to talk to Neville or talk to us about anything, like, I always let them know, like, make sure you explain to our parents.
You got to go through.
Let them understand what's going on. Right. Because, they've played a big role in our lives. And even though we're old enough to make our own decisions, like, we still want...
You got to run it. You got to run it through the foundation first.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and then from there, Neville went to St. Catharines. And I think because of who Jeff MacArthur was and who he's played and the connections he's made throughout his career, he was able to, to reach out to different people and, get them to get an eye on Neville. The thing with Canada Prep, though, is they played an all-American schedule. So all the schools they played against were in the States. So it gave Neville an opportunity to get a little bit of exposure there as well. Right.
No, that's and then from there on, he chose Oklahoma. Yeah. Did some big things. Yeah. Won some big championships. So like how proud of him are you?
Before I get to that, I want to make a point that he told me that I didn't know until after the fact, until after, I think it was a couple of years ago, he and I were talking about his process. And I remember him telling me, like, while he was at Canada Prep, while the coach was doing his part to help him out, he was also on the grind, because he said he met a player who had played, I think, JUCO in the States or something, and I was now at Canada Prep. And the guy showed Neville, like, you have to, like, be able to, you got to contact schools yourself as well. And so Neville told me, like, he was probably sent 30 to 50 emails a day.
Wow.
to like, he said he'd look at the conference and he would hit up coaches and say, initially, you know, you don't get the response that you want, but soon it starts trickling in. And then from that, it kind of snowballed. So like, for example, I remember the first school that called looking for Neville was Maryland University. And, you know, I didn't know much about Maryland football, but I know Maryland basketball and the history behind it. So I was like, yo, Maryland. I was super hyped. And then, you know, I was like, no, is Maryland a good school for football? I was like, yeah, you know, they're good for these positions, whatever. But then, you know, the big dogs started calling. And they were really like, you know,
interested.
Yeah, because the thing was, you don't want a school to get a gem that you could have gotten.
Right.
So, you know, obviously the competitiveness between programs. Like, oh, Maryland's looking at this guy? Okay.
Let's look at him.
And then, oh, those guys over there looking at this guy? What's the hype?
We definitely
let's take a look at him.
Right.
And also, Neville was the first guy to be invited to the Nike opening, which is all the top U.S. high school football players get invited to the Nike. They go to the Nike facility in Oregon, and they have like a training camp, and so on and so forth. And then he was the first Canadian player to ever be invited to play in the U.S. Army American Bowl.
Nice.
And that was big for him.
I remember that.
Even though he didn't get to play, but that's where he made his announcement.
I remember that.
Yeah. So for me, like, just the journey and just being able to sit back and be a part of it, and to just go there and, you know, go to Norman, Oklahoma, and, you know, sit on the sidelines and watch hear Neville's name for making a play, and then 100,000 people
just screaming
and cheering.
Crazy.
It was a crazy feeling, man. And
so would you say that you're kind of living vicariously your American dream of playing, you know, D1 or whatever? Are you saying, you know, is it like living vicariously through him, but without telling him what to do? Is like you're so proud of him that he's kind of living your dream through himself, and is that kind of
100%? And I don't hold back on the opportunity to
big him
indulge, or overindulge. Like
so the gear,
the gear, I mean the gear. I more so want his jerseys.
Yeah, the jerseys.
Yeah, I and also like I even get my wife to buy his jerseys. Like the ones they play in are different than the ones that you actually sell. Right. So I get my wife to she's bought me 2, and it's just, you know, for my birthday, Christmas. You know, what do you want? Neville Gallimore? Do you have one right now?
More. Keep it coming.
Yeah. So just all that stuff, and I mean, it's just a great story. And the fact what's so impactful and so touching for me is that I knew Neville when he was a baby.
Yeah.
I'm 13 years older than him, so I remember one summer, like, you know, when my mother had to go back to work, you know, it was me and him. You know, it was me and him a lot of the times. You know, me, you know, taking him to the park. I had to learn how to rock him to sleep.
Like holding his hand.
Yeah, I had to learn how to make him a bottle, you know what I'm saying? So when I look at Neville now, like, you know, like it really warms your heart, because you actually see somebody grow from like a little baby, and now he's like, you know, I don't tell him what to do. Yeah. And I make it my thing not to tell him what to do, because he's earned the right to do that, to make his own decisions.
So that was almost like you were his dad almost.
We have a dad, but yeah, but I was a big brother caretaker. Yeah, I was very hands-on. Well, I mean, just the way we grew up.
That's who you are.
We're very close. My older brother and I are very close. My parents and I are very close. So that's that was our household. You know, and my parents are, you know, from Jamaica, and you know, one thing my mother always says, you know, is make sure you stand up with your bread up. And I was like, yeah, you know, so she always tells us that, you know, like you have to stand up. It's
ingrained.
Yeah, so like it's a no-brainer, because, you know, obviously parents, you also have to be forward thinking, in the sense that, you know, unfortunately you may or may not be around in the long haul to watch your kids mature and become adults. So to have people that's going to stand up with them, especially close relatives, it's something that my parents always and we take it seriously.
So now you've taken all those daddy duties, you know, growing up as big brother, caretaker. Now you have your own family.
Yeah.
So you have 3 kids, beautiful wife. Yeah. What's the best thing about fatherhood right now?
I think the best thing about fatherhood is learning, man. And you learn something new every day, and kids are always going to teach you something. You know, whether it's, you know, learning to communicate with somebody who doesn't have words yet, you know, and they might be pointing, you got to learn what it means when they cry like this, or when they cry like that. You know, you got to learn what it means when, you know, when they're pointing, but they're mumbling, and you're like, you know, you have to figure it out. So you always, and then obviously teaching them stuff, you know, teaching them how to speak, teaching them how to, you know, how to be clean, how to be tidy, teaching them how, as siblings, like, you know, you guys don't have to be like fighting all the time. Teaching them, you know, how to have, like, you know, relationships with your parents, the importance of us being here for you. And when we teach you certain things, it's not because we don't want you to enjoy certain things, but you got to learn life lessons as well that comes with certain things. And, you know, kids are kids. They're going to act on impulse, and they're going to, you know, if they see it and they want it, they, you know, they think they're supposed to have it, you know, so helping them to understand that that's not how life works. Right. And yeah, that's just the learning and the teaching part of it for sure, because that's never ending. Anyway.
So who's the more disciplinarian parent in your family? Is it wifey? Is it daddy?
I have to be, and I say that because, my wife and my mother-in-law, you know, it's my mother-in-law's first. She's the only child. My wife is the only child. Okay. So, you know, first grandkid, second grandkid, you know, they're all, you know, cuddly.
So they're like,
yeah, you know, the kids
pouring it on.
And the thing with kids, as they grow, like, they know how to get what they want. So,
absolutely,
you know, I kind of have to be like, no, man, you guys can't do that. No, you can't have that. You know, wow, if daddy wasn't around,
I'm sure, they're getting it.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. So I'm not saying that. Obviously, that's my job to be a disciplinary parent and all that kind of stuff, because you want your kids to grow up understanding how life works, manners, and how to deal with people, how to treat people. But at the same time, you know, I want to be able to, like, yeah, you could have this, you know, because they already had it. Well, you can't have any more. Right. So that's where I'm usually at. You can't have any more. You already had that. You can't do that again because mommy and grandma had already allowed you to do that. I'm sure my wife would probably see this and be like,
here we go.
But we share the workload for sure in how we raise our children. But definitely, you know, I feel like a lot of times I need to step in and be like, no, you can't have that. You can't do that. Because maybe, you know, even maybe because mom is probably tired and maybe needs a break. Like, yeah. But, you know, sometimes I have to say, okay, you guys need to cut it.
To end the segment, we do our Keeping It 100 segment. So these are 5 questions. Okay. Quick, fast. You don't know anything that's coming. All right. Oxtail or curry goat?
Wow, tough question, man. Jeez. Oxtail.
Magic or bird?
That's also a tough question.
Come on, it's not supposed to be easy. Softball.
Yeah. But because I came later than seeing those guys. So what I lived through Magic and Bird is what had already happened before I saw it. But it is tough. Based on it is man. I would say
you gotta give me one.
Jeez. I love Bird and I love Magic Bakes, but they're two completely different players. I'm gonna go with Magic.
Okay. Favorite junk food?
I should probably stop eating junk food. I enjoy everything but jalapeno Doritos.
Oh man, favorite football player of all time?
That's a no-brainer. Neville Gallimore, man.
I had a feeling that was going there. Favorite basketball player of all time?
Michael Jordan.
Garry Gallimore. Keep being positive, my man.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me, man. Love the setup. I've loved what you've always done with Capital Courts.
Appreciate it,
and
man.
What you've transpired to now with the prep program.
Appreciate it.
I think you're one of the foundational people in Ottawa now in terms of basketball, in terms of leading the next generation. So that's definitely admirable.
Thank you, man.
And thanks for the opportunity, man. I love an opportunity to share my story.
Hey, man.
I think a lot of people don't realize that because I'm very
and that's why I had to get this guy on.
I know when you see me
and a lot of people are misunderstood because they just their business. They like, man, maybe he's not a nice person. And I already knew that, you know, who you were from the jump, so I wanted to share that with the world.
Right, I'm glad. Well, now you guys see me now, my splendor.
Let's go.